flight from Chicago landed 2 hours early, and I couldn't contain my excitement. 3 days of endless meetings and corporate presentations had felt like an eternity away from Michael. I texted him from the plane, but decided to surprise him instead of calling for a ride. The taxi pulled into our driveway just as the sun was setting, casting long shadows across our perfectly manicured lawn. That's when I noticed Mia's silver BMW parked beside Michael's car. My heart did a little skip. Maybe she was keeping him company while I was away. Mia had been doing that more often lately, dropping by with wine or takeout when I traveled for work. She was such a good friend, always looking out for both of us. I fumbled with my keys at the front door, my hands shaking slightly from exhaustion and anticipation. The house felt unusually quiet as I stepped inside, my designer heels clicking against the marble foyer. I set down my suitcase and called out softly, "Michael." "I'm home early." No response. The living room was dimly lit, with 2 wine glasses sitting on our glass coffee table. One had Mia's signature coral lipstick on the rim, the same shade she'd worn since college. A bottle of our best Bordeaux sat nearly empty between them. I smiled, imagining them catching up, probably talking about me and how much they missed having me around. But something felt different. The air seemed charged with an energy I couldn't quite place. My stomach fluttered with an odd nervousness as I kicked off my heels, padding across the hardwood in my stockings. That's when I heard it. Soft laughter drifting down from upstairs, not the kind of laughter I was used to hearing from Mia. This was different. Lower, more intimate. My breath caught in my throat as I recognized the sound that followed. The distinctive creak of our bedroom floorboards, the ones right beside our king-size bed. My heart began to race, but I told myself I was being ridiculous. They were probably just talking in the bedroom. Maybe Mia was helping Michael pick out a surprise for my return. She had excellent taste, after all. That had to be it. I climbed the stairs slowly, my hand trailing along the banister we'd picked out together when we renovated last year. Each step felt heavier than the last. The sounds grew clearer as I ascended hushed whispers, the rustle of fabric, and something else that made my chest tighten with a fear I didn't want to acknowledge. The hallway stretched before me like a tunnel, our wedding photos lining the walls in elegant silver frames, Michael and I on our honeymoon in Santorini. The 3 of us at Mia's birthday party last month, her arms wrapped around both of us, her radiant smile lighting up the camera. Our bedroom door was slightly ajar, just enough to let a sliver of warm light spill into the hallway. I could hear Michael's voice now, low and husky, in a way that sent chills down my spine, not because it was unfamiliar, but because I knew that tone so intimately. It was the voice he used when he wanted me, when desire made his words thick and urgent. But he wasn't talking to me. My legs felt like lead as I approached the door. Part of me wanted to turn around, to call out again, to give them a chance to. What? To explain whatever innocent explanation there had to be. but my body moved forward on autopilot, drawn by a horrifying need to know. I pressed myself against the wall beside the doorframe, my heart hammering so loud I was sure they could hear it. Through the crack, I could see our bedroom, the room Michael and I had shared for 5 years, the room where we'd made love, where we'd planned our future, where I'd dreamed of the children we'd have someday. The afternoon light filtered through our sheer curtains, casting everything in a golden glow that should have been romantic. Our silk sheets, the ones I'd picked out in Paris, were rumpled and twisted. And there, on my side of the bed, was Mia. She looked exactly like the woman I'd known since college. The same cascading auburn hair, the same flawless porcelain skin, the same graceful neck that had always made me slightly envious. But seeing her there, in my space, wearing nothing but the afternoon light, felt like looking at a stranger. And Michael, my Michael, with his salt and pepper hair and the laugh lines I'd grown to love over 7 years together, was leaning over her with an expression I'd seen 1,000 times, but never directed at anyone else. The world seemed to slow down, like someone had pressed a pause button on reality. I watched as he traced his fingers along her collarbone, the same gesture he'd done to me just last week before I left for Chicago. I saw her arch toward him, her eyes closed in bliss, her lips parted in a way that made my stomach turn. They were beautiful together. That was the thought that hit me first, and it made everything so much worse. They looked like they belonged together. Two gorgeous people lost in passion, completely unaware that they were destroying someone else's life. My hand found the doorframe. Gripping it so tightly, my knuckles went white. I wanted to scream, to burst through that door and demand explanations. But I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but watch the betrayal unfold in slow motion. Mia's eyes fluttered open, and for a terrifying moment, I thought she might see me. But her gaze was fixed on Michael, drinking him in with a hunger I recognized because I'd felt it myself. How long had she looked at him that way? How long had this been building while I trusted them both completely? I've wanted this for so long. I heard her whisper, her voice barely audible, but carrying perfectly in the quiet house. The words hit me like physical blows, each one more devastating than the last. Michael's response was lost in the sound of my own heartbeat, but I saw his smile, tender and passionate, and everything I thought belonged only to me. He kissed her then, deeply and desperately, and I had to bite my lip to keep from crying out. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a terrible mistake. This was practiced, comfortable, familiar. They moved together like lovers who knew each other's bodies, who had done this before. How many times? How many nights had I worked late or traveled for business while they were here, in my bed, sharing what I thought was mine alone? Tears finally came, hot and silent, streaming down my cheeks as I stood frozen in my own hallway. Everything I'd believed about my life, my marriage, my friendship, it was all crumbling around me, and I was powerless to stop it. I had to get out of there before they saw me, before I completely fell apart. But my legs wouldn't obey. and I remained transfixed by the scene that was destroying everything I'd built my happiness on. Somehow, I found the strength to move. My bare feet made no sound on the hardwood as I backed away from the doorway, each step feeling like I was walking through quicksand. The soft murmur of their voices followed me down the hall, Michael's deep laugh, Mia's breathy giggle sounds that would haunt me forever. I grabbed my purse from the kitchen counter with trembling hands, my keys jangling too loudly in the silence. Every sound felt amplified, dangerous, like it might give me away. The front door seemed miles away as I crept toward it, my heart hammering so hard I was sure they could hear it upstairs. The cool evening air hit my face as I stepped outside, but it did nothing to stop the fire burning in my chest. My silver BMW sat in the driveway like a lifeline, and I practically threw myself into the driver's seat. My hands shook so violently, I could barely get the key in the ignition. I sat there for a moment, engine running, staring at the house that no longer felt like home. The bedroom window glowed warmly in the darkness, and I could see shadows moving behind the curtains. My bedroom, my bed, my husband, my best friend. The betrayal hit me in waves, each one more devastating than the last. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel and let the tears come, ugly, wrenching sobs that tore from my throat like physical pain. How could I have been so blind? As I drove aimlessly through the quiet streets, my mind began racing backward through the past few months, searching for clues I'd missed. And God, there had been so many. Mia's hand lingering on Michael's shoulder during our anniversary dinner last month. I thought she was just being affectionate, the way she always was. But now, I remembered the way her fingers had traced along his collar, the way he'd leaned into her touch just slightly, the inside jokes they'd developed lately, references I didn't understand, shared glances across the room during dinner parties. I'd felt left out sometimes, but I'd attributed it to their shared love of obscure films and vintage wine. How naive I'd been. The way Mia had started asking about my travel schedule more frequently. When's your next trip to Chicago? She'd ask casually over coffee. Michael must get so lonely when you're gone. I thought she was being considerate, maybe planning to keep him company. She had been, just not the way I'd imagined. And Michael, God, how had I missed the signs with Michael? The new cologne he'd started wearing, the extra attention to his appearance, the way he'd become more attentive in bed, trying new things, as if he was practicing techniques learned elsewhere. I'd been flattered, thinking our marriage was entering an exciting new phase. The late nights at the office that had become more frequent, the business dinners that ran longer than usual, the way he'd started taking calls in another room, his voice dropping to a whisper. I'd trusted him completely, never questioning, never doubting. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat, and I nearly swerved off the road. With shaking fingers, I pulled over and checked the message. It was from Mia. Can't wait to see you tonight, babe. Girls' night. I have so much to tell you. 2 hearts. I stared at the screen, my vision blurring with fresh tears. The audacity of it took my breath away. She was texting me while she was still in my house, probably still in my bed with my husband, planning to sit across from me in a few hours, pretending to be my loyal friend while the taste of Michael was still on her lips. Something shifted inside me then, something dark and fierce, replacing the crushing pain. The tears stopped falling, and my hands steadied on the wheel. I wasn't going to fall apart in my car on some random street corner. I wasn't going to drive home and pretend I hadn't seen anything. Wasn't going to smile and nod while Mia told me her so much over wine and chocolate. I needed space to think, to plan, to decide what came next. The Marriott downtown appeared like a beacon through my windshield, its warm light promising sanctuary. I'd stayed there for work conferences before. It was elegant, discreet, and most importantly, it wasn't home. The lobby was nearly empty at this hour. Just a few business travelers checking in late. I approached the front desk with what I hoped looked like confidence, though I could feel my composure hanging by a thread. "I need a room for tonight," I told the young clerk, who looked barely old enough to be working. "Of course, ma'am." "Name for the reservation." I hesitated for just a moment. "Sarah Mitchell," I said, using my maiden name and middle name. I wasn't ready to be Nicole Peterson, the wife who'd been played for a fool. Tonight, I needed to be someone else entirely. The room was on the 15th floor, with a view of the city lights that normally would have calmed me. Instead, I found myself pacing the length of the window, my mind spinning with possibilities and pain. I ordered room service, a bottle of wine, and whatever food they recommended, and sat on the pristine white bed, so different from the silk sheets at home that were probably still warm with their bodies. The thought made me nauseous. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Mia. "Hello, did you get my message? Are we still on for tonight?" Then 20 minutes later, "Getting worried, text me back." And finally from Michael. "Hey honey, Mia stopped by looking for you. Said you had plans tonight. Hope your flight wasn't delayed. Love you." The casual lies in that message were almost impressive in their boldness. Mia had stopped by looking for me. Right, and I was sure she'd left immediately after not finding me, not staying to comfort my poor, lonely husband. I turned my phone face down on the nightstand and poured myself a generous glass of wine. The Bordeaux was nothing like the bottle they'd been sharing in my bedroom, but it burned just as much going down. I needed to think clearly about what came next. Confrontation seemed inevitable, but when? How did I storm back home tonight and catch them together, force them to face what they'd done? Did I wait until morning, let them think they'd gotten away with it, then drop the bomb? Or did I take a different approach entirely? I thought about the life I'd built with Michael. 7 years of marriage, the house we'd renovated together, the dreams we'd shared about children and growing old together. Could any of that be salvaged? Did I even want it to be, knowing what I knew now? And Mia, 15 years of friendship since college. She'd been my maid of honor, the first person I called with good news or bad. She knew all my fears, my hopes, my insecurities. She'd held me while I cried about wanting children, about the pressure at work, about feeling like I wasn't enough for Michael sometimes. Had she been laughing at me all along? The wine was making my head fuzzy, but my anger was crystal clear. They'd made a fool of me, both of them. They'd taken my trust and twisted it into something ugly, used my love as a shield for their betrayal. I looked at myself in the mirror across from the bed. My makeup was smeared, my hair disheveled from running my hands through it. I looked like exactly what I was, a woman whose world had just imploded, but I wasn't going to stay that woman. I was going to figure out how to fight back, how to reclaim some power in this situation that had left me feeling so powerless, whether that meant trying to save my marriage or burning it all down. I wasn't sure yet. Drop a comment and tell me, team reconciliation or team revenge? Because honestly, sitting in that hotel room with my heart in pieces and my future uncertain, I genuinely didn't know which path would hurt less, or which one I deserved more. I sat there staring at my reflection for what felt like hours, the hotel room feeling smaller with each passing minute. The silence was deafening. No Michael's voice calling from downstairs. No sound of his keys hitting the marble countertop. No familiar rhythm of our life together. Just me, a half-empty bottle of wine, and the crushing weight of everything I'd lost in the span of a few hours. I needed air. I needed noise. I needed something other than the four walls of this hotel room and my own spiraling thoughts. The hotel bar was dimly lit, all warm wood and leather, the kind of place where business travelers nursed expensive whiskey and pretended their problems were back home instead of following them everywhere. I claimed a corner table, ordered another bottle of wine, this time a Cabernet that cost more than most people spent on groceries in a week. I didn't care. Michael's credit card could handle it. The wine was smooth, rich, everything the cheap stuff in my room hadn't been. I was halfway through my second glass when he appeared. Drinking alone isn't nearly as romantic as they make it seem in movies. I looked up to find a man standing beside my table, tall and lean, with salt and pepper hair that looked deliberately tousled. His suit was perfectly tailored, his smile crooked in a way that suggested he knew exactly how charming he was. Who says I'm trying to be romantic? I replied, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. He laughed, a genuine sound that made something inside my chest loosen slightly. Fair enough. Mind if I join you? I promise I'm excellent company for non-romantic drinking. I gestured to the empty chair across from me. David, he said, settling in and signaling the bartender. And you are Nicole. I took another sip of wine, studying him. He was handsome in a refined way, the kind of man who probably read actual books instead of just scrolling through his phone, who knew the difference between good wine and great wine, the kind of man Michael used to be before he got comfortable, before he stopped trying. So, Nicole, David said, accepting his own glass from the server, what brings you to a hotel bar on a Tuesday night? Business trip, romantic getaway gone wrong, life implosion, I said simply. The wine was making me honest. Complete and utter life implosion. He raised his glass in a mock toast. To life implosions. May they lead to better things. We clinked glasses, and I found myself actually smiling for the first time since I'd walked into my bedroom that afternoon. Your turn, I said. What's your excuse for drinking alone in a hotel bar? If divorce papers were finalized today, he said matter-of-factly. 15 years of marriage, officially over, seemed like the kind of occasion that called for good wine and questionable decisions. But there was something refreshing about his honesty, the way he didn't try to dress up his pain in pretty words or false optimism. How do you do it? I asked, leaning forward slightly. How do you just move on, start over? David swirled his wine thoughtfully. You don't, really. Not at first. At first, you just survive. You put one foot in front of the other and try not to think about all the ways your life used to make sense. He took a sip, his eyes never leaving mine. But eventually, you realize that the person who hurt you doesn't get to define the rest of your story. You get to write what comes next. I felt tears threatening again, but they were different this time. Less desperate, more relieved. Like someone had finally given me permission to feel everything I was feeling without trying to fix it or explain it away. She cheated, I found myself saying. My husband, with my best friend. I walked in on them this afternoon in our bed. David's expression darkened slightly. Christ, I'm sorry, Nicole. That's particularly brutal. But the worst part is, I think I knew, I continued, the words spilling out now. Deep down, I knew something was wrong. But I kept making excuses, kept giving them the benefit of the doubt, because I trusted them, because I loved them. But trust is a beautiful thing, David said quietly, until someone weaponizes it against you. We talked for hours about marriage, betrayal, the way love could turn into something unrecognizable, about dreams deferred, and the courage it took to start over at 31, at 45. About the person you become when everything you thought you knew about yourself gets stripped away. David was easy to talk to, the kind of listener who asked the right questions and didn't try to offer solutions to problems that couldn't be solved with advice. He told me, ex-wife, about the slow erosion of their relationship, about the relief mixed with grief when they finally admitted it was over. The strangest part, he said, as we moved to our third bottle, is realizing you're not the same person you were when it all started. You can't go back to who you were before, even if you wanted to. I nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. The Nicole who'd left for her business trip yesterday morning felt like a different person entirely. That woman had been naive, trusting, content to let life happen to her. This Nicole, the one sitting in a hotel bar at midnight, drinking expensive wine with a handsome stranger, felt dangerous, unpredictable, alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. I have a confession, David said, leaning closer across the small table. His cologne was subtle, but intoxicating. Nothing like the sharp aftershave Michael had worn for years. What's that? I noticed you the moment you walked in, even before you sat down, before you ordered that first glass. There's something about a woman who's been broken, but refuses to stay broken. It's captivating. The compliment hit me like a physical thing, warming me from the inside out. When was the last time Michael had looked at me like that? When was the last time anyone had? I should probably go back to my room, I said, but made no move to leave. Should you? David asked, his voice low. Or should you do something completely out of character? Something just for you, for once. His hand moved across the table, fingers brushing against mine. The touch was electric, sending sparks up my arm that I hadn't felt in months, maybe years. My room has a much better view than the bar, he said softly, and room service. We could continue this conversation somewhere more private. I looked into his eyes, dark and warm, and full of promise. I thought about Michael, probably still at home, probably texting Mia about damage control. I thought about my empty house, my empty bed, my empty life. Then I thought about David's words. You get to write what comes next. Show me, I said, surprising myself with how steady, how sure I sounded. David smiled, that crooked grin that had caught my attention hours ago. He stood and offered me his hand. I took it. Whatever happened next, it would be my choice, my story, my chance to remember what it felt like to be wanted, desired, chosen. For the first time in years, I was about to do something completely and utterly for myself, and it felt like freedom. I woke up to sunlight streaming through hotel curtains that weren't mine, in a bed that smelled like expensive cologne and decisions I'd never imagined making. David was already gone. A note on hotel stationery sat on the nightstand. Thank you for reminding me what connection feels like. You're stronger than you know. D. The shower water was scalding, but it couldn't wash away what it'd done, or how alive I'd felt doing it. My reflection in the bathroom mirror looked different somehow, flushed, awakened, guilty as hell. The drive home felt like traveling between two different worlds. My silver BMW knew the route by muscle memory, but I felt like a stranger behind the wheel. Every red light gave me time to think, to remember David's hands, to wonder what Michael was doing right now. Our driveway looked exactly the same. Our house, with its perfect landscaping and designer touches, stood unchanged, but everything felt different now that I knew what I was capable of. The smell of bacon hit me as soon as I opened the front door. Michael's voice drifted from the kitchen, humming some old jazz standard like he hadn't destroyed our marriage yesterday. Nicole, that you, darling, darling. The word made my stomach turn. Yes, I called back, dropping my overnight bag by the stairs. I'm home. Michael appeared in the kitchen doorway, spatula in hand, wearing the blue button-down. For Christmas, his salt and pepper hair was perfectly styled, his smile warm and familiar. If I didn't know better, I'd think he was genuinely happy to see me. How was Chicago? He asked, crossing to kiss my cheek. His lips felt foreign against my skin. You look tired. The casual betrayal in that simple kiss nearly brought me to my knees. This man had been inside my best friend 24 hours ago, and now he was making me breakfast like nothing had happened. The meetings ran late. I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. "You know how it is. I made your favorite," he said, guiding me toward the kitchen island where 2 perfect plates waited. Eggs Benedict with fresh hollandaise, crispy bacon, perfectly arranged strawberries, the same breakfast he'd made me every Sunday for the first 2 years of our marriage, before he stopped trying, before Mia. "You didn't have to do all this," I said, accepting the coffee he pressed into my hands. It was perfect cream, no sugar, exactly how I liked it. How could he remember my coffee preferences, but forget our wedding vows? "Wanted to," Michael said, settling across from me with his own plate. "I missed you." The lie slipped out so easily, so naturally. I wondered how many others I'd swallowed over the months without even noticing. My phone buzzed against the marble countertop. Mia's name flashed across the screen, and my blood turned to ice. "Answer it," Michael said, not even looking up from his eggs. "Don't let it get cold." His casualness was obscene. How could he sit there, acting normal, while my world crumbled around us? "Hey, Mia," I answered, proud of how normal I sounded. "Nicole, welcome back, gorgeous." Mia's voice was sickeningly sweet, full of false enthusiasm. "How was the trip? I missed you so much." I watched Michael's face as she spoke. Nothing, no guilt, no recognition, no sign that he'd been buried between her thighs yesterday afternoon. "It was productive," I said carefully. "What's up? Lunch today? Our usual spot?" "I'm dying to hear everything, and I have so much to tell you." Our usual spot. The little bistro downtown where we'd shared 1,000 conversations, where she'd helped me pick out my wedding dress, where she'd held my hand when my mother died. All those memories felt poisoned now. Sure, I heard myself saying, 1 o'clock, perfect, can't wait to catch up. The line went dead, and I set the phone down with shaking hands. "Lunch with Mia?" Michael asked, still not meeting my eyes. I couldn't trust myself to say more. "Good. You two haven't had proper girl time in weeks." Weeks. How long had this been going on? How many signs had I missed while I was busy building my career, trusting my husband, believing in my marriage? I pushed food around my plate, unable to eat. Everything tasted like ash and betrayal. Michael's phone chimed, and I watched him glance at it. A small smile played at the corners of his mouth, the same smile he used to save just for me. "Work?" I asked. "Ladies, if this is making your heart race, show me some love with a like." "Just confirming a meeting," he said, but his fingers moved across the screen with the familiarity of frequent texting. I excused myself to shower and change, needing space to breathe. In our bedroom, where I'd found them, I noticed things I'd somehow missed before. A second coffee cup in the sink, hair ties that weren't mine on the nightstand, the faint scent of Mia's perfume still clinging to the air. How blind had I been? I chose my outfit carefully for lunch. A black wrap dress that David had said looked stunning, paired with heels that made me feel powerful. If I was going to face my best friend's lies, I needed all the armor I could get. The bistro was crowded when I arrived, full of the usual lunch crowd of business people and ladies who lunch. Mia was already there, sitting at our corner table, looking radiant in a way that made my chest tight. Nicole. She stood to hug me, and I forced myself not to recoil. Her perfume was overwhelming, the same scent I'd smelled in my bedroom. "You look amazing," I said, because it was true. Her skin was glowing, her hair perfectly styled, her smile bright and satisfied. The look of a woman being thoroughly pleased by someone else's husband. "I feel amazing," she said, settling back into her chair. "Life's been so good lately, so fulfilling." The word choice felt deliberate, cruel. I ordered wine even though it was barely past noon. "Tell me about Chicago," Mia said, leaning forward with fake interest. "Any cute businessmen catch your eye?" The irony was suffocating. Here she was, asking about my love life while actively destroying my marriage. "Nothing worth mentioning," I lied, thinking about David's hands, his mouth, the way he'd whispered my name like a prayer. "That's too bad. You deserve some excitement in your life." The audacity was breathtaking. She was stealing my husband while pretending to care about my happiness. "What about you?" I asked, my voice carefully neutral. "Anything new and exciting?" Mia's cheeks flushed pink, and she bit her lower lip in a way that used to seem endearing, but now looked manipulative. "Actually," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "there is someone wonderful and mature and unavailable." My wine glass trembled in my hand. She was actually going to tell me. She was going to confess to sleeping with Michael, while pretending it was some romantic, star-crossed love story. "Unavailable," I managed. "Married," she said, her eyes sparkling with the thrill of it. "I know it's wrong, but Nicole, when you find a connection like this, you can't just ignore it. It's bigger than both of us." I wanted to throw my wine in her face. I wanted to scream. Instead, I took a careful sip and nodded like a supportive friend. "How long has this been going on?" I asked. "Months," she said dreamily. "It started so innocently, just conversations. But then, God, Nicole, I've never felt anything like this. He makes me feel alive in ways I didn't know were possible." Months, while I'd been working late, traveling for business, trusting them both completely. They'd been building a relationship behind my back. "Does his wife know?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. "God, no," Mia said quickly. "She's so focused on her career, so busy with her own life. Honestly, I don't think she'd even notice if he disappeared tomorrow. They're like roommates more than lovers." The description of my marriage hit like a physical blow. Was that really how they saw us? How Michael saw us? "But enough about me," Mia said, reaching across to squeeze my hand. "I want to hear everything about your trip. Every boring business detail." I smiled and lied, and played the role of oblivious wife and faithful friend, while inside I was screaming. Every laugh felt like glass in my throat. Every casual touch felt like betrayal. By the time I got home, I was exhausted from the performance. Michael was in his study, door closed, voice low on a phone call. I pressed my ear to the wood and heard fragments. Can't wait to see you again. And she doesn't suspect anything. I backed away from the door like it was on fire, my heart hammering against my ribs. This was my life now, a web of lies and betrayals, where the two people I trusted most were conspiring against me, where I had to pretend everything was normal while my world crumbled around me. But I wasn't the same woman who'd walked in on them yesterday. I'd tasted freedom with David. I'd remembered what it felt like to be desired, chosen, wanted. If they wanted to play games, I could learn to play too. The question was, what did I want to win? The next morning, I sat in my car outside the offices of Sterling Investigations, gripping my purse so tightly my knuckles had gone white. The building looked modest, almost forgettable, exactly what I needed. I'd found them online at 3 in the morning, unable to sleep after Michael's phone call. The reviews were discreet but glowing, professional, thorough, results that hold up in court. That last phrase had made my stomach flip. The receptionist led me to a small office where a woman in her 50s waited behind a clean desk. Sarah Chen looked nothing like the private investigators in movies. No trench coat, no cigarette smoke, just a crisp blazer and kind eyes that had probably seen too much. "What can I help you with, Mrs. Patterson?" she asked, gesturing to the chair across from her. "I need to know the truth about my husband," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "I think he's having an affair." Sarah nodded, pulling out a yellow legal pad. "Tell me what you've observed." I told her everything. The bedroom scene, Mia's confession without naming names, Michael's phone calls behind closed doors, the way they looked at each other now that I knew what to look for. "I need proof," I finished. "Not just for me, for whatever comes next." Sarah's pen moved steadily. "We'll need photos, documentation of meetings, financial records, if possible. Standard infidelity package runs about $3,000 for 2 weeks of surveillance. $3,000. A month ago, that would have seemed impossible to hide from Michael. Now, it felt like the best money I'd ever spent. "When can you start?" "Today." I wrote the check with hands that barely trembled for the first time since walking into my bedroom 2 days ago. I felt like I was taking control. The waiting was torture. I went through the motions of normal life, morning coffee, with Michael, work meetings, grocery shopping, but underneath, I was vibrating with nervous energy. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Michael seemed relaxed, even affectionate. He brought me flowers on Wednesday, expensive white roses that made my skin crawl. Did he buy them with guilt money? Or was this part of the performance, keeping his unsuspecting wife happy while he carried on with her best friend? "You seem tense lately," he said Thursday night, his hand finding my shoulder as I stood at the kitchen sink. "Everything okay at work?" His touch felt like ice water. I forced myself not to flinch. "Just tired. The Henderson account is demanding. Maybe you should take a vacation when this project wraps up," Michael suggested, his fingers massaging the base of my neck. Go visit your sister in Portland. Take some time for yourself. The suggestion made my blood run cold. How convenient for him if I disappeared for a week or two. How much easier to carry on his affair without worrying about unexpected returns home. Maybe, I murmured, moving away to dry my hands. We'll see. Friday afternoon, Sarah called. Can you come in? I have preliminary findings. I told my assistant I had a dentist appointment and drove across town with my heart in my throat. Sarah was waiting with a manila envelope that looked innocuous enough to destroy my life. I have to warn you, she said gently. This isn't easy to see. The first photo showed Michael and Mia at Romano's, the Italian restaurant where he'd taken me for our anniversary last year. They were holding hands across the table, Mia laughing at something he'd said. Her head was thrown back, eyes sparkling, looking more beautiful and alive than I'd ever seen her. The next photo caught them leaving the Hilton downtown. Michael's hand was on the small of Mia's back, guiding her toward his BMW. She was wearing the red dress I'd helped her pick out last month, the one she'd said was for a work event. Photo after photo. Michael opening car doors for her, Mia kissing him in parking lots, the two of them entering a boutique hotel on 5th Street, the same one where Michael had claimed he was meeting clients. How long? I whispered. Sarah consulted her notes. Based on credit card records and witness statements, at least 8 months. Possibly longer, 8 months. While I was working late nights on the Henderson account, traveling for presentations, believing his stories about client dinners and golf tournaments, 8 months of lies, performed with Academy Award precision. There's more, Sarah said carefully. Financial irregularities. She spread bank statements across her desk, like tarot cards, predicting my future. Highlighted charges jumped out at me. Jewelry stores, expensive restaurants, weekend hotel stays during business trips I'd never taken. This necklace, Sarah pointed to a charge from Tiffany's for $1,200. Do you remember receiving it? I shook my head, thinking of my jewelry box at home. No Tiffany's necklace there. The hotel charges correspond with your business travel, she continued. While you were in Chicago, he was at the Ritz-Carlton with her. While you were in Seattle, they spent the weekend in Napa. Each revelation felt like another punch to the stomach. Not only was he betraying me emotionally, he was using our money to fund his affair. Our joint savings, the account we'd built together for our future, had been financing romantic getaways with my best friend. What's the total? I asked, though I dreaded the answer. Approximately $15,000 over the past 8 months. Restaurants, hotels, gifts, even a weekend trip to Vegas. $15,000. I thought about all the times I'd suggested we needed to budget more carefully. All the small luxuries I'd denied myself while he was lavishing gifts on Mia. I gathered the photos with hands that shook only slightly. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable. No room for misinterpretation or innocent explanations. Michael wasn't just having an affair. He was conducting a full-scale relationship funded by our marriage. What happens now? I asked. Sarah leaned back in her chair. That depends on what you want. Divorce proceedings, confrontation. Some clients prefer to gather more evidence first. I need to think. Driving home, I felt strangely calm. The uncertainty was over. The gaslighting, the self-doubt, the wondering if I was imagining things. All of it was finished. I had proof. I had power. But I also had decisions to make. Confronting them now would be satisfying, but stupid. Michael handled our finances, knew all our investments, had connections I'd need to navigate carefully. And there was still the question of what I wanted from the wreckage of my life. At home, Michael was grilling salmon on the patio, humming softly to himself. He looked so normal, so innocent. If I hadn't seen the photos, I might have thought he was simply a devoted husband preparing dinner for his wife. "How was your day?" he asked, kissing my cheek as I joined him outside. "Enlightening," I said, accepting the glass of wine he offered. We ate dinner like a normal couple. We discussed weekend plans, a movie we might see, whether we needed new patio furniture. The performance was so perfect, it was almost admirable. But I wasn't the same woman who'd hired a private investigator 5 days ago. I had evidence now. I had options, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I had a plan forming in the back of my mind. If Michael wanted to play games, I was ready to learn the rules. But I intended to win. The next evening, I executed my plan with surgical precision. Wine night. I texted Mia around 4 p.m. "I picked up that Bordeaux you love." Her response came immediately. "Perfect. Need some girl time. See you at 7. But the irony wasn't lost on me. She needed girl time while sleeping with my husband. I spent the afternoon preparing. Not just the wine and cheese board, but mentally rehearsing every word. I'd learned from Sarah that Michael wasn't just with Mia tonight. He was actually with Jennifer from his accounting department. The affair web was even more tangled than I'd imagined. At exactly 7, Mia arrived in her usual cloud of expensive perfume and false warmth. She looked radiant, practically glowing with the confidence of a woman who thought she was getting away with everything. "You look amazing," I said, embracing her at the door. "That dress is stunning." "Thanks, babe." I felt like celebrating tonight. She settled onto my white leather sofa, the same one where I'd spread out the damning photos just days before. I poured the wine with steady hands, watching her relax into what she thought was our normal routine. We chatted about work, about her upcoming vacation, about a mutual friend's engagement party. She was so comfortable, so unsuspecting. "Actually," I said casually, swirling my wine, "I should mention Michael might stop by later. He's working late again, but I asked him to come home early tonight." Something flickered across Mia's face, surprise, maybe concern. "Oh, that's unusual for wine night. I thought it might be nice. The 3 of us haven't spent time together in ages." I kept my voice light, innocent. "Besides, you two always have so much to talk about." Mia's laugh sounded slightly strained. "We do seem to click, don't we?" "You certainly do." I refilled her glass, noting how quickly she'd emptied the first one. In fact, I've been meaning to ask you about something. What's that? I was about to answer when my phone buzzed. Right on schedule. That's Michael, I said, glancing at the screen. He's on his way home. Mia went very still. I should probably head out then. Let you two have your evening. Don't be silly. Stay. My smile was warm, but my eyes were ice. I insist. 20 minutes later, I heard Michael's BMW in the driveway. Through the window, I watched him check his appearance in the side mirror, smoothing his hair. He had no idea what was waiting for him. The front door opened. Nicole, you home? Living room, I called sweetly. Michael appeared in the doorway, his face transforming from casual warmth to absolute shock when he saw Mia on our sofa. The color drained from his skin so quickly I thought he might faint. Mia, he said carefully, his voice oddly hoarse. I didn't know you were coming over tonight. Surprise, I said, standing slowly. Wine night. You know how much Mia enjoys our little traditions. The silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken terror. Michael's eyes darted between Mia and me, calculating, trying to read the situation. Mia had gone completely rigid, her wine glass frozen halfway to her lips. Actually, I continued conversationally. I'm glad you're both here. There's something we need to discuss. I walked to the coffee table and opened the manila envelope Sarah had given me. One by one, I laid out the photographs. Michael and Mia at the Ritz-Carlton. Michael and Mia kissing in his BMW. Michael and Mia entering what looked like Jennifer's apartment building. Apparently his lies ran even deeper than I'd imagined. Recognize these? I asked mildly. Mia's wine glass slipped from her fingers, red liquid spreading across my white carpet like blood. Michael stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing without sound. 8 months, I said, my voice still perfectly calm. That's how long this has been going on. 8 months of lying to my face, of making me feel crazy for suspecting something was wrong. Nicole, Michael started. Shut up. The words came out sharp enough to cut glass. You don't get to talk yet. You don't get to explain or justify or make excuses. You get to listen. I picked up another photo, Michael and Mia, at an expensive restaurant downtown. $15,000, Michael. $15,000 of our money spent on hotels, gifts, romantic dinners, while I was cutting coupons and wondering why our savings account was shrinking. Mia finally found her voice. Nicole, please, let us explain. Explain what? I turned on her, all pretense of civility gone. Explain how my best friend has been screwing my husband for 8 months. Explain how you sat in this very room 2 weeks ago, drinking my wine, and told me about your affair without mentioning it was with my husband. Tears were streaming down Mia's face now, her mascara creating dark tracks on her cheeks. But I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, no softness. The worst part, I continued, isn't even the sex. It's the lying. It's the way you both looked at me with pity. Like I was some pathetic woman too stupid to see what was happening right in front of me. Michael finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. How did you find out? Does it matter? The point is I know. I know about the hotels, the gifts, the romantic getaways you've been planning. I know about Jennifer from your office too. Yes, Michael. I know about her as well. What is it? Some kind of competition to see how many women you can juggle. Michael's face went from pale to gray. Jennifer is just another affair. Another lie. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. God, you're pathetic, both of you. Mia stood up unsteadily, wine staining the front of her designer dress. Nicole, I'm so sorry. You have to believe that we never meant for this to happen, but it did happen. For 8 months it happened. Every time you hugged me. Every time you asked about my marriage. Every time you pretended to be my friend. You were betraying me. We fell in love, Michael said suddenly, his voice stronger now. I know that doesn't excuse anything, but we fell in love. It wasn't planned. It wasn't malicious. Love, the word tasted bitter in my mouth. You think this is love. Love doesn't involve lying and stealing. Love doesn't involve humiliating someone who trusted you. If you're hooked on this story, subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. I picked up my phone from the coffee table. I've already spoken to a lawyer. Divorce papers will be filed Monday morning. I want you out of this house by tomorrow night, Michael. Take whatever you need, but don't take anything that isn't specifically yours. Nicole, please. Mia reached toward me, but I stepped back. Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again. I looked between them, these two people I'd loved and trusted. You want each other so badly. Fine. Have each other, but you don't get to have me as collateral damage anymore. The confrontation was over. The truth was out. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could finally breathe. The silence that followed my words was deafening. Michael stared at me like I'd just spoken a foreign language, while Mia's face crumpled into tears that I no longer believed were genuine. You can't be serious, Michael said finally, his voice hollow. Nicole, we can work through this. People make mistakes. 8 months isn't a mistake. I cut him off. 8 months is a choice. Every day, every lie, every time you came home and kissed me goodnight, those were all choices. Mia suddenly straightened, her tears drying as something harder flickered in her eyes. You know what? Maybe this is for the best. Maybe Michael deserves someone who actually appreciates him. The audacity of her words hit me like a physical blow. Excuse me, you've been taking him for granted for years, Nicole. Always working late, always too tired, always putting everything else before your marriage. Her voice grew stronger, more venomous. At least I made him feel wanted. Michael's face went white. Mia, don't. Don't what? Don't tell the truth. She turned to face him, her mask completely dropped now. You told me yourself how lonely you were, how Nicole never really listened to you anymore, never really saw you. I felt something cold settle in my chest. This wasn't just about the affair anymore. This was character assassination. Get out of my house. Nicole, she's upset, Michael started, but I held up my hand. Both of you, get out now. Mia grabbed her purse from the coffee table, her movements sharp and angry. Fine, but don't come crying to me when you realize what you've lost. Michael is a good man, and you never deserved him anyway. The front door slammed behind her with enough force to rattle the windows. Michael remained frozen on the couch, his head in his hands. She's right about one thing, he said quietly. I have been lonely. We barely talk anymore, Nicole. We're like strangers living in the same house. So you decided to fix that by sleeping with my best friend. I didn't plan this. His voice cracked as he looked up at me. It just happened. We were talking one night after that dinner party at the Richardsons. And she understood me in a way that, stop. I couldn't listen to another word. Just stop. You're talking about my best friend, Michael, the woman who helped me pick out my wedding dress. The woman who held my hair back when I had food poisoning last Christmas. I know how this looks. I laughed, but it came out broken. Michael, I have photographs, bank statements, hotel receipts. I know about the Tiffany necklace you bought her. I know about the weekend in Napa you told me was a business trip. I know about Jennifer from your office too. His face went ashen. How do you? Does it matter? The point is, this isn't some moment of weakness or loneliness. This is who you are now. This is who you've been for months. He stood up suddenly, pacing to the window. I never meant to hurt you. I love you, Nicole. I've always loved you. If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. People can love more than one person. Not like this. Not by betraying everything we built together. I picked up his wedding ring from where he'd set it on the mantel earlier. The gold felt cold in my palm. 17 years, Michael. We were going to grow old together. He turned back to me, tears in his eyes. We still can. If we go to counseling, if we work on our communication, with my former best friend as your mistress, with Jennifer waiting in the wings. I shook my head. I can't compete with a fantasy, Michael, and I won't. The next few hours passed in a blur of practical arrangements. Michael packed a suitcase while I sat in the kitchen, staring at my phone. I needed to tell someone what had happened, but every name in my contacts felt complicated now. Who could I trust? Who had known about the affair and said nothing? Who would take sides? I finally called my sister Emma, my hands shaking as I dialed. Nicole, it's late. Is everything okay? The concern in her voice broke something loose inside me. Emma, I need you to know that Michael and I are getting divorced. Silence then. What happened? You guys seemed fine at Mom's birthday last month. He's been having an affair with Mia for 8 months. Another silence, longer this time. Oh, honey. Oh, Nicole, I'm so sorry. Are you sure? I caught them. I have proof. It's been going on since last winter. Mia, you're Mia. But she's your God, Nicole. How could she do this to you? The shock in Emma's voice was genuine, which was somehow both comforting and devastating. If my own sister hadn't suspected anything, then I really had been the only one left in the dark. I don't know who to trust anymore, I admitted. I keep wondering who else knew. Who else was keeping their secret? Do you want me to come over? I can be there in an hour. Not tonight. Michael's still here packing. But maybe tomorrow. Of course, whatever you need. After I hung up, I called my mom. That conversation was harder. She'd always adored Michael, treated him like the son she'd never had. Her disbelief was painful to witness, even over the phone. Are you absolutely certain, sweetheart? Sometimes things can look worse than they are. Mom, I walked in on them in our bedroom. The silence stretched so long, I thought the call had dropped. Oh, Nicole. Her voice was barely a whisper. Oh, my dear girl, I'm so sorry. By the time Michael finished packing, it was nearly midnight. He stood in our foyer, my foyer now, with 2 suitcases and a garment bag. This doesn't have to be permanent, he said one last time. We can get through this if we both want to. I looked at this man I'd shared my life with, this stranger who'd been lying to me for months. The Michael I married would never have done this. That man is gone. He nodded slowly, finally understanding. I'll call you about the logistics. The house, the accounts. My lawyer will handle that. After he left, the house felt enormous and eerily quiet. I walked through the rooms we'd decorated together, past the photos of our life, vacations, anniversaries, dinner parties where Mia smiled beside me, her arm around my shoulders. I started taking them down, one by one. Each frame felt like evidence of a life that had been built on lies. In our bedroom, my bedroom now, I stripped the bed completely and threw everything into garbage bags. The sheets, the pillows, even the comforter we'd bought for our anniversary last year. I couldn't sleep in that bed. I couldn't sleep in that room. Instead, I curled up on the couch in the living room, still in my black dress from the confrontation, and stared at the ceiling until dawn. My phone buzzed with text messages throughout the night. Michael, begging me to reconsider. Mia, alternating between apologies and accusations. Emma, checking on me. Even a few mutual friends who'd somehow already heard. I turned it off and pulled a throw pillow over my head. Tomorrow, I would have to start rebuilding my life from scratch. Tomorrow, I would have to figure out how to be Nicole without Michael, without Mia, without the future I'd planned. But tonight, I just needed to survive the wreckage. The morning light streaming through the living room windows felt harsh and unforgiving. I'd managed maybe 2 hours of sleep, curled on the couch in yesterday's black dress, my body aching from the uncomfortable position. My phone showed 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. I didn't need to read them to know what they contained. Michael's desperate pleas, Mia's manipulative justifications, and concerned messages from family and friends who'd somehow caught wind of the explosion. I made coffee with shaking hands and sat at the kitchen table where just days ago Michael had kissed my forehead and told me he'd miss me during my business trip. The normalcy of that memory felt obscene now. Emma had texted 3 times overnight. Are you okay? Call me when you're ready. I'm here for whatever you need. I finally called her back. Nicole, thank God, she breathed into the phone. I've been so worried. How are you holding up? I don't know, I admitted, my voice hoarse. I feel like I'm in someone else's life. What do you need? I can come over, or you can come here, or I need a lawyer, Emma. A really good divorce lawyer. She was quiet for a moment. Are you sure? I mean, maybe you two could work through. He's been having an affair for 8 months. With Mia. And apparently someone else too. The words came out flat, matter of fact. There's nothing to work through. Oh, Nicole. Her voice broke a little. I'm so sorry. I know someone, Catherine Morrison. She's tough, really tough. She handled my friend Sarah's divorce last year, 2 hours later. I sat across from Catherine Morrison in her corner office, overlooking the city. She was exactly what I'd hoped for: sharp, professional, with steel gray hair, and eyes that missed nothing. I've reviewed the evidence you provided, she said, spreading Sarah Chen's photographs and financial records across her mahogany desk. This is quite comprehensive. Your private investigator was thorough. I nodded, still feeling surreal seeing those images in this sterile office setting. Michael and Mia at expensive restaurants. Michael and Jennifer from his office entering hotels. Bank statements showing thousands spent on jewelry, trips, romantic gestures, none of which had been for me. Here's what we're looking at, Catherine continued, her manicured finger tracing through the documents. Adultery, dissipation of marital assets, breach of fiduciary duty. In this state, we can pursue both equitable distribution and alimony. Given his income disparity and the circumstances, you're in a very strong position. And what does that mean exactly? It means we can take him for everything, Nicole. Her smile was sharp as a blade. The house, the investment accounts, his 401k, alimony for years. We can expose every detail of his affairs in court documents that become public record. His reputation, his business relationships, all of it becomes fair game. The vindictive satisfaction that flared in my chest surprised me with its intensity after months of being made to feel inadequate, ignored, betrayed. The idea of watching Michael's carefully constructed life crumble felt intoxicating. We can also pursue the girlfriend for alienation of affection, Catherine added. Mia, was it? If she has any assets, any reputation to protect, we can make her life very uncomfortable. I imagined Mia's face when she received legal papers. Imagined her having to explain to her family, her coworkers, why she was being sued for destroying my marriage. The woman who'd sat in my kitchen and blamed me for driving Michael away would finally face consequences. However, Catherine leaned back in her leather chair. There's something else you should know. We found some concerning patterns in Michael's recent financial activity. She pulled out another set of documents. He's been moving money, small amounts, but consistently, into accounts we can't immediately trace. It started about 4 months ago. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? It suggests he's been planning his exit strategy for a while. The affairs might not have been just about sex and excitement. He may have been positioning himself financially for a divorce. he was planning to initiate. The betrayal cut even deeper. While I'd been trying to save our marriage, working longer hours to give us financial security, Michael had been systematically preparing to abandon me. Every loving gesture, every "I love you" had been a lie designed to keep me complacent while he orchestrated his escape. "We can trace that money," Catherine continued. "We can make his life very, very difficult. The question is, how far do you want to take this?" I stared out her office window at the city below. People walking to lunch, living their normal lives, unaware that in this sterile room, I was deciding between two versions of my future. If you're hooked on this story, subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. One path led through years of legal warfare, court battles where every intimate detail of our marriage would be dissected, depositions where I'd have to relive every moment of betrayal, victory measured in Michael's financial ruin and public humiliation. The other path led where exactly? "Catherine," I said slowly, "if I wanted to be done with this as quickly and cleanly as possible, what would that look like?" She raised an eyebrow. "You'd be leaving money on the table, potentially a lot of money, but I'd be free faster, much faster. We negotiate a fair settlement, the house, half the legitimate assets, reasonable alimony for a few years while you reestablish your career. You'd be divorced within 6 months instead of dragging it out for years." I thought about David from the hotel bar, how he described his own bitter divorce battle, 2 years of lawyers and depositions, and hatred that poisoned everything, including his relationship with his children. "Here's what I want," I heard myself saying. "I want the house. I want half of everything legitimate, the retirement accounts, the savings, the investments. I want enough alimony to give me time to rebuild my career without panicking about money, and I want it done as quickly and quietly as possible." Catherine looked genuinely surprised. "Nicole, you could destroy him. After what he's done to you, most women would want blood." "Maybe they would," I said, standing up, "but I don't want to spend the next 3 years of my life fighting Michael in court. I don't want my future defined by his betrayal. I want to be free of him, completely and permanently." She nodded slowly, making notes. "I can make that happen, though I reserve the right to play hardball if he doesn't cooperate with reasonable terms." "Agreed. But Catherine, I want one thing made very clear to him." "What's that?" "I know about the hidden money. I know about both affairs. I know everything. If he tries to screw me over or make this difficult, then we go scorched earth." His choice. Her smile was approving. "Now that's the approach I like to see. Peaceful, but prepared for war." Walking out of Catherine's office, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. A sense of my own power. Not the destructive power of revenge, but the quiet strength of someone who knew exactly what she wanted and how to get it. Michael had spent 8 months planning his escape. Now it was my turn to plan my future. 6 months later, I sat in Cafe Luna, a charming little place overlooking the harbor, watching the morning light dance across the water. The final divorce papers lay spread across the marble table before me, each page representing the official end of a chapter I was more than ready to close. I signed my name with a flourish, Nicole Chen Morrison, soon to be just Nicole Chen again. The weight of my wedding ring had been absent from my finger for months now, replaced by a delicate silver band I'd bought myself as a symbol of new beginnings. Catherine sat across from me, her briefcase organized with typical precision. "It's done," she said, gathering the documents. "The house is yours. The retirement accounts are split fairly, and the will give you exactly the cushion you wanted to build your consulting business." And Michael signed everything without a fight. I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Like a lamb," Catherine smiled. "Turns out your strategy worked perfectly." The threat of exposing everything kept him cooperative. He got his freedom, you got your dignity, and everyone moves on. I took a sip of my cappuccino, savoring the rich foam. The woman sitting here was barely recognizable from the broken wife who had fled that hotel 6 months ago. I'd lost 15 pounds, not from stress this time, but from hiking, yoga, and actually caring about my body again. My hair was shorter now, a sophisticated bob that framed my face in a way that made me feel powerful. The navy blazer I wore was new, purchased for my consulting business launch. "Any word on how the happy couple is doing?" I asked, surprising myself with how little I actually cared about the answer. Catherine's expression turned amused. "From what I hear through the legal grapevine, not so happy." Apparently, reality hit hard once they were actually together. Mia discovered that a man who cheats on his wife might also cheat on his girlfriend. Michael's been seen around town looking rather defeated. "Karma has such perfect timing," I murmured, watching a sailboat glide across the harbor. The irony wasn't lost on me. While Michael and Mia had been sneaking around hotel rooms and stealing moments, I'd been building something real. My consulting firm, Chen Strategic Solutions, had already landed 3 major clients. The spare bedroom in my house had been transformed into a sleek office space, complete with a mahogany desk that faced the garden. My phone buzzed against the table. A text from James, the man I'd been seeing for the past 2 months. "How did the signing go?" "Champagne dinner tonight to celebrate your official freedom." I smiled, typing back quickly. "Paper signed, freedom official." Champagne sounds perfect. James was everything Michael wasn't. Age appropriate at 34, emotionally available, and genuinely interested in my thoughts and dreams. He was a landscape architect I'd met at a networking event, drawn to his easy laugh and the way he actually listened when I spoke. No games, no hidden agendas, just honest connection. "Someone special?" Catherine asked, noticing my smile. "Someone real," I replied. "It's refreshing." Catherine gathered the last of the papers. "You know, Nicole, I've handled a lot of divorce cases. Most women in your situation either try to destroy their ex-husbands or crumble completely. You chose a third path. You chose to win by building something better. I stood up, slinging my leather purse over my shoulder. Through the cafe window, I could see my car, a silver Audi I'd bought myself last month. Practical, but elegant. No more sharing vehicles or asking permission for purchases. I realized something during all this, I said. Michael didn't just betray our marriage. He underestimated me completely. He thought I'd be too broken or too dependent to rebuild. The best revenge isn't destroying him. It's proving him wrong. Walking to the parking garage, I felt the satisfying click of my heels against the concrete. These weren't the designer shoes I'd worn to impress Michael's colleagues. These were comfortable, professional pumps I'd chosen because I liked them. My phone rang as I reached my car. Emma, my sister. "So," she said without preamble, "are you officially a free woman?" "Officially," I laughed, settling into the driver's seat. "And it feels incredible. I'm so proud of you, Nicole. 6 months ago, you were destroyed. Now you're running your own business, dating a great guy. And you sound happier than you have in years." She was right. The woman who had discovered Michael and Mia in her bed felt like a different person entirely. That Nicole had been living half a life, accepting scraps of attention and calling it love. This Nicole knew her worth. "I have a client meeting in an hour," I told Emma, starting the engine. "But dinner's Sunday. I want to hear about your new promotion." "Absolutely. And Nicole, thank you for showing me what strength looks like. Watching you rebuild has inspired me to make some changes of my own." Driving through downtown, I passed the hotel where I'd first met David. We'd exchanged a few texts over the months, friendly check-ins from one survivor to another. He was doing well too, apparently. Had started dating someone seriously. It was nice to know that betrayal didn't have to be the end of the story. At a red light, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. The woman looking back had clear eyes and a genuine smile. No more walking on eggshells. No more wondering what mood Michael would be in when he came home. No more pretending not to notice when conversations stopped as I entered a room. My phone buzzed with another text, this time from my mother. "Lunch tomorrow to celebrate. I'm buying." The outpouring of support from my family had been overwhelming. They'd all suspected Michael wasn't treating me well, but had been too polite to say anything. Now they were thrilled to have their Nicole back. The confident, ambitious woman I'd been before I'd started dimming my light to avoid outshining my husband. Pulling into the parking lot of my client's office building, I took a moment to appreciate the view. The city stretched out before me, full of possibilities I was finally brave enough to pursue. Tonight, I'd celebrate with James, a man who thought my success was sexy, not threatening. This weekend, I'd work on the marketing proposal that could land my biggest client yet. As I walked toward the building, my phone buzzed one more time. A text from an unknown number. "Nicole, it's Michael. I know I don't deserve it, but could we talk? I made a terrible mistake." I stared at the message for exactly 3 seconds, then deleted it without responding. chapter was closed, signed, sealed, and delivered to the past where it belonged. Straightening my blazer, I walked into the building to meet my future. Behind me, the harbor sparkled in the afternoon sun, and ahead of me lay a life I was finally excited to live. Michael had given me the greatest gift without meaning to. He'd shown me I was strong enough to start over, and this time I was starting over as exactly who I wanted to be.